My master chord. Autism. What is autism? I'm watching YouTube and having things to say. Oh my god. Where do I start? Should I start? Should I not? I don't. As an autistic person, whether you have been diagnosed or not, if you haven't been diagnosed, it's close to 100% probability that you have been raised by undiagnosed, hence masked, and extremely unsatisfied autistic parents. A lot of turmoil, lots of trauma, horrible situation. Even if you were diagnosed as a child, still does not guarantee, only slightly improve the chances that your parents could have known they're autistic. Because, surprise, where do you think autistic children come from? From autistic parents. There are a lot of aspects to go into. I had like a whole conversation with myself in my mind right now, at the same time with commenting on an incredible video by a person who was like wondering if they're autistic or not. But ultimately, the picture is this: you are autistic, and thankfully now you know, and that can become a great tool for you to discover ways of creating improvement in your life, which means, by and large, ceasing this harsh, horrifying, painful self-harm that's happening in your brain, 99% of which, or maybe 90 to 99, depending on how physically harmful you are to yourself. But physical harm doesn't come out of nowhere, it comes out of your mental harm. It starts there. So you realize you're autistic, so there's nothing wrong with you apparently. And you slowly start accepting more of yourself. And you have all these ideas about how to improve the world, about how you feel selfish, that you harm people. Those are also ideas. You see, all of this is happening in your mind. You think that you're bad. Why do you think you're bad? Because your parents were autistic. They didn't know it. They were suffering, and they were projecting that suffering onto you. So every need that they denied themselves, they denied to you. Even those parents who didn't deny you your needs, but did not provide those needs for themselves, they still created this environment in which it would be extremely challenging to grow up with a healthy mindset and healthy self-esteem and just free and, like breathable self-concept. And when you realize that, it becomes like in spirituality, they always tell you, you have to be happy in order to be the most useful to other people. But as an autistic person, it becomes so poignant. Like, you see how harmful can people be very often on the example of your parents. That's why I'm bringing it up, because it's really close to you. It's like, it's at the core of you, because that's how you were brought up. You can see how extremely, extremely important it is to prioritize. I love my cat. He's just running around. It's Zoomies time. How extremely important it is to prioritize your own well-being. Because the toxicity in the environment, that your own self-doubt, self-hate, shame, guilt, feeling not enough, all of these things that you're dragging around with you, that you got from people who didn't know how to take care of themselves, all of these things are creating, is palpable. And it spills out in all of your relationships. It spills out in your career. It spills out in your material circumstances. And I'm not going to be saying, oh, yeah, you thinking bad thoughts, that's why you're poor. Ultimately, everything affects everything. And yes, that's how it is. But It's not, you see, we're not at that conversation yet. It's not that place of, because you're probably not ready to talk about it yet, because probably now you're going to take it as a conversation of blame, while that's more in the conversation about projection, whether you blame it on others, on yourself, and how you project the own self-blame, da da da. What I'm saying is, it's a blessing that you know you're autistic, whether you fully accept it or not, that the glimpse of understanding that there was nothing wrong with you, you have to also really, really look at the situation that your parents are autistic. And that will show you a lot of what needs to be done, and a lot of where you are through either very like positive intentions or through avoidance of looking at own self-harm, mental self-harm. You are contributing to the suffering around you. And again, it's not about guilt, it's about your constant and persistent desire to make the world a better place. Why? Because you're constantly suffering so much. Why? Because you're extremely sensitive. Why? Because autism is another word for sensitivity. There is a diagnosis that is HSP, I think, highly sensitive person. That's exactly the same as autism. They just put it separately for people to not hate the diagnosis so much. So once you understand that, right, like every suffering is exaggerated within you. So your mental health is like top priority. It is for everybody. It should be for everybody. But we are not talking about it through our like capitalist lens of like, oh, if you are not well, you can't produce enough, or you be of use, you know? You're not an object to be used. But everything you do, as this person said, like everything I'm doing is trying to avoid my own suffering. That is the basis of spirituality, or like spiritual journey. That's where it starts. You understand that the egoic, the baseline existence of a person comes from constantly running away from things they don't like and running after things they think they do like. Michael Singer is saying very nicely about this. It's just like this compulsion, and you're not realizing this. And it's not enough to just realize this, right? Like, because you can say, yeah, all I'm doing is running away from my suffering, unless you understand that the running away, like the suffering is in your mind, right? And you're running away from your mind because you're afraid of it, because it's telling you bad things and you believe them. So there is the journey of uncoupling from your mind. Mind is a tool of creation and communication. If it's used for anything else, it brings suffering, because it is not made to do anything else besides communication and creation. And as an artist, you can also very clearly see that. Like when I'm on my own, I'm writing my book or whatever, I'm doing the thing, I feel like thrilled about my mind, or like even having this internal conversation sometimes, like conceptually or whatever. It's like, wow, this is such a great place. But suddenly, if the vibe is off about something, and you don't understand those connections of vibes versus the words that your mind is talking about, or like just the moods that it's catching, you know, the vibe of your internal conversation is the vibe of this situation, and it's closely, not, you can't even say it's connected because everything is one, but when you use words, everything seems separated. But it's closely related, or a direct outcome, at least while you are unconscious, which means you're running on the default mode. is connected to your nervous system state. If your nervous system is activated, your vagal response is firing up, everything seems stressful, you have thoughts that bring more stress, and the circle goes on. And sometimes the cycle. Sometimes you can just take a nap, or you sleep and you wake up and everything is better. But when this stress is persistent, your body is trained to feel the stress longer. So you feel trapped in that mind cycle because you keep vibing low due to your body's response. So this process of like getting better is understanding that you are not your thoughts and you're not your body. There's another branch of also understanding the autism and loving it, because you are, like, all of us are fantastic creations, right? But autism is just a word for you being closer to God, which aka closer to consciousness of creation, aka ethers, ideas, creativity, intuition. All of those words are the same. It really don't matter. Whatever you prefer, you can use. Don't get triggered. And of course, you can't be farther or closer because we're all the same. We are the same. We're a manifestation of that consciousness, physical. But your sensitivity allows you to be more aware of it. Hence, as I already mentioned in the beginning, you feel more strongly when you're not aligned with it, right? Because the baseline of the consciousness and the universe is well-being, and your negative thoughts pull you away from that well-being. I feel I'm getting maybe a little bit too deep for one video, but it is what it is. It is how it is. And you understand that slowly. You might not believe me right now. And you can't really just read it in a book and be like, oh, it is how it is. But certain things, when they're spoken through your language, through your frame of reference, because we all have this frame and it's different shapes, and not everything can come through. It's like, we have an extruder for making things out of recycled plastic or something, and it has a nozzle and it has a shape and it has an extruder thing. That's basically what you are. You have a hole where things come in, and you have a hole where things come out. It's the same hole. So that also the same as, that is like an interpretation, or like a word for law of attraction. That's what it means. It means that the way you vibe is the same things you see, and also the same things you create of the same flavor. And somewhere you have to cut the loop. When you have we reverse engineer this. When you have you want to make a lot of rings, you make a coil and then you cut it up and make it into rings and make them flat. So you have to do the other thing. When you're running around in circle, you're running, you have to snap it in some point and twist it to unlock it. So instead of running in a circle, you suddenly run up onto another level. And then next time you go again up onto another level. And that just means that not that you're becoming better than others or whatever. It just elevates your perspective. And again, it's not you're up on a high horse. You just see more clearly. And the more clearly you see, the perceptually kinder and more beneficial for everybody actions you can take. But that don't matter. But that's an unavoidable what's the word? Outcome. Okay, now I'm gonna upload this, and I don't know if I'm gonna keep talking or not. I might. I just don't want to make too long of videos because it can get confusing.